Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I finished my studies at HEC Paris almost a year ago, and recently I was thinking about this. How much money did I actually spend overall across my 3 years of studies at HEC? So I did a calculation. I looked at how much I spent on tuition, I looked at my monthly living expenses in my first year, in my gap year across my 2 internships in LA as well as in Paris. And then I also looked at how my expenses changed in my second year. I counted what I made during my internships and then also what I spent on flights and traveling and shopping and all these other things. And then I decided to make this video. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so first let's look at the tuition fee. In the year that I joined, I think the fee was around 37,000 euros and I got a 4,000 euro entrance scholarship. So that brought my tuition, like total tuition, down to like 33,000 euros across all 3 years. So when I traveled from India to Paris in August of 2018, I remember my first one-way flight was like 500 euros. It's not normally that expensive, but being peak student season, it was that expensive. When I first reached HEC, there were a whole bunch of things that I needed to buy. First and foremost, there were like things for my room, which I bought from IKEA. I think I spent almost 350 or 400 euros getting things. Maybe I went a bit overboard. I also bought the HEC alumni membership, which was like 200 euros, which looking back, honestly, I think I could have completely avoided that. But then there were also other important things, like I had to buy jackets and warm clothes, since I didn't really have much of that coming from Bangalore, where it's not really that cold ever. I think I spent like another 300 or 400 euros, something like that, buying all of my clothes. And actually for all my warm clothes, I highly recommend Uniqlo. That's where I bought all of them from. And even now, after 3 years, all of them are still in really great condition. So that's like 1,000 euros already for all of these like first time expenses. Let's now look at my monthly living expenses during my first year of HEC. My monthly rent after the rental subsidy that you get here in France called the CAF, it was around 400 euros per month, which was for a single room on the campus. I think I used to spend something around 200 euros every month on groceries. I spent like 30 euros a month on my transport card and 10 for my phone. And I also got a 25 euro haircut every 2 months, so you can say that's 12.5 euros per month. So this brings the total down to around 650 euros on the basics. Okay, but that doesn't really tell the entire picture because that's just the basics, right? When you're at business school, you tend to just need certain things to buy, or especially since I'd moved out of home for the first time, a lot of times I would just like shop for stuff that I wanted even. So things like new clothes, new shoes, new pair of AirPods, like a new jacket, or something tech or hobby related which I just wanted. And I think on average in my first year I spent maybe something like 1,500, 1,600 euros across 10 months, bringing it down to like 150 euros per month. So that you can add it and it becomes 800 euros a month. Oh, and then there was also like traveling and going out into the city in Paris and experiencing things. Every time I went out to Paris, like I would go to a bakery, I'd go to a restaurant, I'd just like buy myself like a little thing, like a coffee or whatever. I mean, I would do little things like that. I wouldn't say like every weekend, but maybe twice a month. And each time I would be spending like 40 euros. So if I did that 2 times a month, that would bring it up to like 80 euros a month. I also took a few trips during my first year. They were all budget trips, like 150 or 200 euros in total. You can say that I spent something around 50 euros per month on like trips related things, averaged out. And then being at HEC, there were parties. I'd buy beer or I'd go to the food truck a couple of times a month just to get food, because a lot of times the food trucks on campus were actually really nice. You know, like all of that kind of stuff. So I think to round it off, let's say I was spending 70 euros a month on that kind of stuff. Because every time you go to the food truck, a meal costs something around like 10 euros, 12 euros. And if you go buy beer, it's actually beer in France as compared to India is extremely cheap. So it's really not that expensive. But yeah, so you can say that I was spending like 70 euros a month on all of this. So in total, I know like I kind of rounded things up and down here and there to make things a little bit more simple, but I was spending something around 1,000 euros a month. So this for 10 months is like 10,000 euros in living expenses in my first year. 10k living expenses, 1,000 bucks in like first time stuff, and then the flight ticket, and then the tuition. It's added up to like 44,500 euros already. Alright, so now let's talk about the gap year. In the first half of my gap year, I did an internship in Los Angeles. While my company paid for my visa, I was still paying for my own flight. So I spent 300 euros on the flight, 300 euros on staying at a backpacker hostel for the first 10 days, And then I'd say like another 400 or 500 euros on just like general things during my first month when I was there before I actually got paid for the first time. And then after that, my internship stipend pretty much covered all of my living expenses as well as my flight back home to India at the end. So that's around 1,000 euros that I spent out of pocket for my time in LA. And okay, you know what? Let's just say 1,500 just to be safe because I don't remember exactly how much it was. After LA, I flew back to India, and then from India, I flew to Paris. And I remember at the time that the one-way ticket from India to Paris was really expensive because it was like first week of January. And so it was something like 800 euros one way. In the second half of my gap year, I did an internship at MAC Cosmetics here in Paris. And I was paid something around 1,000 euros a month after taxes and social contributions and all of that. My rent at the time was 760 euros, and I spent 240 euros a month on like groceries and other basics, similar to what I told you guys in my first year. I think I spent something around 200 or 300 euros every month on like going out and shopping, so those were out of pocket. When you're actually in Paris, you end up spending so much more money than when you're at HEC because there's just so many more things to do. It's just so easy to go to restaurants and bars and cafes and do all these things because at HEC it's so far away from everything that there's really no options to spend your money other than the supermarket. So yeah, this went on for like 2 months, so that's 600 euros out of pocket, and then March 2020 happened, and we all know what happened there. I was stuck at home for 2 months straight. My office closed and they gave us a meal card, which was cool because that basically gave me an extra 80 euros a month to just spend on food at the grocery store. I also started cutting my own hair at the time, which also saved me a lot of money as well as time. And interestingly, like since then, I've never gone to a barber again. I've been cutting my own hair for the last 2 years now. But yeah, so at that time, I didn't really have any place to spend money other than groceries because I was stuck at home and the whole situation was going on. And so my internship stipend was pretty much covering my entire living expenses for the rest of the internship. My internship got over in early July, and I still had to cover 2 months of living expenses, July and August, before I went back to HEC in September. So I remember that was something around 3,000 euros in total because it was summer and I was like doing a lot of things. And yeah, now let's look at the second academic year of HEC, or like my third year at HEC overall. Wait, so since this video is all about paying for an overseas master's, I thought I'd take this opportunity to tell you all about Prodigy Finance. Studying abroad, as you can see in this video, can be really, really expensive. Your tuition fee, your living expenses, and all these other things, they can add up, and that's why paying through savings is really not an option for everyone. That's why Prodigy Finance offers student loans to international graduate students studying at top universities around the world. The best part is that their loans are without any requirement for a security, a property mortgage, or a guarantor. But how do they do this? They've basically partnered with top universities around the world, looking at school rankings as well as the courses offered. And they assess your loan application on the basis of the student rather than the parents by looking at your study plans. They've got lower interest rates than other options like banks and other financial corporations. They've got a longer repayment period, and they require minimal documentation, and even then from the student and not from the parents. And once you've got your acceptance letter, you can get your loan approved within 3 to 11 days. While you're in school, they offer career support as well as networking support so that you can meet other people and potentially even find a mentor. And once you're out of school, your loan payments start 6 months after classes end so that you have that time to find a job. If this sounds like something you're looking for, the link is in the description below, and I highly recommend you to go check it out. Alright, now back to the video. My rent was similar to what it was in my first year, so that's 400 euros a month. And then even actually the rest of my living expenses were very similar to my first year as well. And so I think I was spending something around 1,000 euros a month again, because I think even though we weren't really going out because, I mean, it was 2020, I was still like buying things and I was like getting nicer groceries, and I don't know what happened, but like I think but I know that I was still spending around 1,000 euros a month at that time. So I did that for 7 months, from September to April, and not including December because I went back home to India at that time. So that's like 7,000 euros in total. And yeah, as I mentioned, I went back to India in December, and so I saved like 1,000 euros in living expenses, but I spent that same money on the flight ticket back home. So it kind of evened out. So that's another 1,000 euros. So yeah, so that's pretty much it, I guess. I moved out of HEC into Paris for the last month of HEC because my classmate Cody and I found this amazing apartment right in the center of Paris, and we wanted to just move into it as soon as possible, so we did. And I think I paid something around like 1,300, 1,400 euros for that month in Paris, which was like 700 euros in rent and 600 euros of like other things, which was mostly just going out and drinking bubble tea. And yeah, so we're done with HEC. And so the total is 59,300 euros. This is still kinda not an exact figure because I may have missed certain things here and there. There might have been other places that I spent money that I don't exactly remember, or maybe I overcounted certain places as well. I know that this is a pretty reasonably accurate estimate. You can basically say it was something around 60,000 euros over 3 years out of pocket. That's around 50 lakh Indian rupees. It's definitely not a small sum, but it's way smaller than what you would pay for an MBA or like doing a master's in the United States. Okay, do you know there's actually a few ways that you can reduce your expenditure while you're in France studying your master's in management? The first one is doing an apprenticeship. I guess this is probably the most impactful way of reducing your overall expenditure, because when you're doing an apprenticeship, you're essentially working part-time, you're studying part-time, but you're getting paid a stipend every month. And something that I did not know before coming here was that when you do an apprenticeship, a lot of companies will also just cover your entire tuition fee. Unfortunately though, HEC Paris's program does not allow for apprenticeships. I mean, you have the gap year, but you can't really do apprenticeships other than that. But the program at HEC allows for apprenticeships. So I know that this is one major factor for many people to consider HEC versus HEC. The next one is getting a scholarship. There's pretty much two main scholarships that people generally have the option of getting, and those are the Eiffel Scholarship and the Charpak Scholarship. The Charpak Scholarship I think is only for Indian students though. The Eiffel Scholarship pays you around 1,200 euros a month, which is pretty awesome. And the Charpak Scholarship I think gives around 500 euros a month. But both of them are incredibly competitive to get. I know the Eiffel Scholarship especially is very, very competitive to get. The next way of potentially reducing your expenditure is doing a part-time job. But unfortunately, again, HEC doesn't really support or encourage students like the MIM students to do part-time jobs because one, there aren't really that many available on campus. TA and RA positions are pretty much non-existent. And two, if you're thinking of getting one off campus, HEC is so far away from the city that there's not really anything around it. So there's no jobs to really do outside of campus either. I have, however, heard of some people getting a fixed term contract job while they were studying with like an actual company doing something more professional. But this is very, very rare. And it's pretty much an option for people who either have like a really good network or they have like really strong experiences beforehand. And lastly, the classic way of reducing your expenditure is to just live more mindfully. Don't buy things you don't need. Live more minimally, be effective in your spending so you're not spending money on the wrong kinds of things, and choose the right kind of people to surround yourself with so that you feel comfortable with your spending choices. But I think that's a topic that I'm going to make a future video on. There you go guys, I hope this video gave you a good idea of what's the kind of financial commitment you're looking into to really come to France and study at a school like HEC. While my experience and this video is about HEC specifically, I know that this applies to most other business schools in Paris or France as well, and also just other schools in general. Let me know if you like this video, give it a thumbs up if you liked it because that really helps me out a lot, and consider hitting that subscribe button because I'll be uploading a lot more videos just like this one. See you guys in the next one.